As you guys might know if you've been following the channel, I have been really loving the idea of OG Fortnite. I've been enjoying playing it, but they have been updating the game in some ways that's making me go, Epic Games. I think, in my opinion, you're kind of missing the mark over there. I always talk about bots, skill-based matchmaking, and I know that not everybody agrees with me on that, but one thing that they recently changed actually received a lot of pushback, and I do disagree, or I agree with the Fortnite community on this, and I disagree with Epic Games on this change. If you guys don't know, Fortnite OG Chapter 1 Season 2 just received an update to the Storm, so the Storm is now like the Chapter 6 version of the Storm, and it's no longer the OG Storm. I personally really don't like this, but of course, we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to give my thoughts. We're going to take a look at replies to Fortnite status and myself to get a gauge on how people are feeling about this. And as always, I'd love to know what you think about it down below in the comment section, everybody. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with many YouTube channels. Let me bring you over to this initial post by Fortnite status from the other day. OG players, we've made some adjustments to the Storm and Fortnite OG to help keep players from being forced to seek out the safe zone too quickly during a match. Drop back in from the battle bus on a Chapter 1 Season 2 now. So, this is the problem, okay? They continuously take away from the OG experience. Whether or not you really like the Storm, and I understand it's going to sound a little bit hypocritical because I'm for things like the new movement. So, something that I've been kind of struggling with myself when talking about these videos is I want the OG experience, but where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line? Because I like the new movement. I like hurdling. I like the wall jumping and all of that. I know, is wall jumping even an OG? But regardless, there's a lot of things from Chapter 6 and just quality of life features added to Fortnite, like walking around using big shields, that I am very for using and having an OG. And that ultimately does take away from the OG experience. So I understand if it sounds hypocritical for me to go, okay, here's the thing. They changed the Storm. I don't like this. They're taking away from the OG experience. So my point being, I'm having internal conflicts with myself in like articulating my thoughts over here. And I do understand if you're going to run to the comments and say, hey, you like this, this, and that. What's wrong with the Storm? But the problem is the OG Storm was something that I had so much fun with. And it's still like, and I don't look at OG Fortnite and think a lot of things would be like perfect for Chapter 6, but I loved the way that the old Storm was. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I should have mentioned this a little bit earlier. Of course, with Chapter 6, you never have to worry about the Storm. The initial Storm circle is massive. You don't really have to go anywhere unless you're like on the edge of the map. And oftentimes, the zone, as the game continues on, will close somewhere towards the center of the map. In OG, and I would, yes, this did go on till Chapter 2. I don't remember exactly when they had the big shift, but this also went into Chapter 2. The Storm circle could end anywhere. At any POI, at any quarter of the map, and right in the middle, doesn't matter. So, part of the OG experience was sometimes landing at somewhere like Moisty Mire, and then the Storm circle being all the way at Junk Junction. I understand the people who find it frustrating, which then you have to just take a couple things and then take off across the map, but I find that to be beautiful about the OG experience. Not only, like, even take away from the OG experience, I miss the Storm actually being a little bit of a threat in the game. I liked having to pay attention to the Storm. I liked choosing whether or not, like, okay, do we push this team? Do we hide from this team? Or sometimes both teams would just have this one giant final battle because you know if you're fighting the Storm, there's way too much walking distance to actually cover. So you're both going out and like you're going out on your shields. You had those great moments, but if you wanted to survive, you could also look at the teams and go, okay, I can't get their attention no matter what I do because we're both going to make it out of this. I loved running into people that were waiting because they knew people would be running all the way from Moisty Mires because they just set up shop at the Storm exactly where people are going to be running into. I loved the challenge of fighting for my health, running and trying to find medkits, using it strategically, doing that thing with your teammates where one guy goes down res, the other guy goes down res. Like, experiencing a win after going through something like that was very rewarding. And that's something that we talk about with the OG experience right now, is because when this initially came out in Chapter 1 Season 1, of course, with the bots and the skill-based matchmaking non-existent, the wins felt so rewarding again. And that's why I personally had so much fun with it. I didn't like the map, I didn't like the guns, I don't care about any of that. The game felt so difficult again. And if you don't want to even talk about just that, like I said, this is something that I would love to see in Chapter 6. I miss the Storm being a threat. It made for different variety types of gameplay as soon as you hopped on. Some games you had to like take off and spend the whole match running and seeing people along the way. Some games you ended up just building a fort because the Storm like just automatically came onto you every single game, and that was pretty hype. You're like, yes, it's not on our base right now, because back in the OG days too, fort was actually in Fortnite. You would build your fort and you would hope the circle wouldn't necessarily be on that. So the fact that it could go anywhere was really fun. And most importantly, I don't know why more people don't talk about this. I know that Epic Games are receiving a little bit pushback right now, but honestly, like, Epic Games could have said, "Hi, how are you today?" and then you receive pushback, so I don't know. I feel like people just complain about every update, but I am with the vast majority of the Fortnite community in this one, saying that this change isn't all that it. At least from what I've seen, the majority of the Fortnite community is pushing back on this. I know that there's people that really like the way the storm works in Chapter 6, and that's totally fine, honestly. Like, we all like different things. I just personally don't really understand why you'd want that. Besides, like, if you have a few games in a row where you happen to just be spending it running from the storm, but really, realistically, it doesn't really happen. Plus, you could just land at the center of the map. Anyways, what I was going to say is, I love when, no matter what map you're playing on, the storm could end at any POI. That's something that I miss. The storm kind of ends in the same kind of general area now, but in OG, it can land at Moisty Mire. How many great endgames have you had in Wailing Woods back in the day? That odd time where the zone would land on Wailing Woods, especially when it was the underground bunker, you'd fight in the trees, but you know what? Everybody loved fighting in the Wailing Woods trees, but as soon as Wild comes in, that's a big issue, but I know there's a little bit more to that. But of course, like, my point being, the end zones at Junk Junction, the end zones at Tilted Towers, the odd end zones all the way over at Snobby Shores, like, no matter where it was, it made for a unique experience, and this is also one of the reasons why back in the OG days, not everybody was getting burnt out. You ever find that your games are kind of feeling a little bit similar to each other? End games being in different spots could really help with that, and that's something that I loved about OG, and that's something that I noticed about OG, and that's something that I forgot how much I missed. I knew that, like, I always prefer the storm that way, but I forgot how much I actually missed it. To have end games in different POIs, like, you can take literally any season, like Chapter 1 Season 5, having this, like, the zone end on West, or everybody had different names for it, Westworld. That was fun. Like, it made for a different experience each time. There was different terrain. That's one of the reasons why I like playing Lakey Marina, because it was just this tiny little circle on, like, different points of the map. Something that I loved, and I think I pointed out in a stream. Regardless, I've said this really recently. I remember specifically zones ending on the volcano and pressure plant, with the giant mech in the middle, with the gravity things like making you shoot up in the air, with those tiny little buildings that you had to stay in, like, and you had that giant volcano. That was insanely fun. I know this wasn't in the center of the map, but what about end zones on Stark Industries? You remember how big that giant mountain was when somebody was stuck at the bottom and somebody was stuck at the top? Then you had to, like, play to make your way up the mountain sometimes, or vice versa. You had to get down the mountain depending on where the circle was going. I don't understand why people don't prefer this. Same energy with Polar Peak, and I know they patched it in Season X, but there was a point in Season X where the end games could land at any rift zone. That was some of the most fun I've ever had playing this game. The point being, I can walk you through every single POI. Last thing I'm going to say is Chapter 2 Season 2. Remember like end games landing on the rig, end games landing on the shark, the yacht? That was so much fun. Yeah, so what? You had to do some running. And in later seasons, there's vehicles. And you can't tell me, like, if they were to switch this in Chapter 6, I will say, they have more of a reason to switch this in OG than they do in Chapter 6. Because in Chapter 6, you have cars everywhere, you have every vehicle under the sun, and you can get to point A from point B in no time. I don't understand why the circle's the way it is in Chapter 6 at all. I understand at least a little bit of a change for OG Fortnite because all you're doing is running. But even then, I don't care. And this is the problem, okay? This is something that's been in the back of my mind, and we're going to be talking about an upcoming video with a couple other creators, okay? This only strengthens my worry for the later seasons of Chapter 1. I'm very personally excited for Season 7 all the way to Season X in Chapter 1 to re-experience that again. When they make little adjustments like this to take away from the OG experience, and they're doing it more and more, bots are here, I know that we can have the bots in the skill-based matchmaking conversation, but when they start actually, like, tweaking the gameplay a little bit when it comes to things like the Storm Circle, what's going to be next, they're going to be tweaking the weapons, you know, things like that, it really worries me for the things that I'm excited to re-experience down the road. Are they even going to have the Infinity Blade in the game? Are ballers going to be as fun as when they get into the game? Are they going to have energy, or are they not going to bounce? Part of the fun was bouncing off that volcano, like, and having those end games with the ballers spawning everywhere. Are they just going to nerf the spawn rate? What about planes? Are they going to be in their former glory, or are they going to be completely useless? Is the combat shotgun going to be nerfed to the ground? That thing's essentially useless to pick up now, but it was so strong back in Season 9. What are they going to do? And especially my favorite season, Season X. I have trouble believing that they're even going to have rift zones in Season X. I'm shocked that they're even going back to Season X. Things like this really are a slippery slope, and I know that it's not, like, completely bad for some people. A lot of you watching this video might completely disagree with me. If you do, comment down below. Let me know why, because Besides the odd game where you have to spend the entire time running, I get not enjoying that. Like, I understand. You might want to just sit down, play, and fight. I would argue that you should just play reload, but at the same time, like, that's totally fair. If you have a different reason, please enlighten me in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. But it's not just about what I think over here. Let's get a gauge on how people are feeling about this. I posted this over on X. I personally really loved the old Storm. How do you feel about this update? I will include some replies in an upcoming video. Thanks for your time, and thank you everybody who replied. So we're going to mix this in with replies over to Fortnite status and kind of, again, to kind of get a gauge on how people are feeling about this, guys. If you want to join the conversation, we make videos like this all the time. Follow me over on X at Clen YouTube, or you can find the direct links in the link tree at the top of the description, or the actual X link over as well in the description, but you'd have to scroll down a little bit, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Did I say like and subscribe? Regardless, again, like and subscribe. Let's get into what everybody had to say about this. Starting with Frezzy. Fix this. The Storm is supposed to be a threat. The new Storm system is bad and has no place in OG, where the entire point is for it to be Fortnite as it was back then. This is not a quality of life change. I completely agree with this. There's really nothing to add about that. I really just miss the Storm being a threat, guys. Let's continue on over to the next reply. Flux Captain Davey had this to say: me watching Fortnite players complain about something that barely affects the game for the 10 millionth time. I would argue this actually does affect the game, but overall it's not like something to go absolutely crazy about. And it's important to note too, guys, I still really enjoy Fortnite OG. I'm enjoying Season 2. I think it's a great update. I just don't like these little changes that they've been doing here and there. But the reason that I wanted to include this one is because the Fortnite community complains so much that this is the reaction to a lot of people that are just fans of Fortnite, but not necessarily part of the Fortnite community, where it's like, oh my god, here we go again. Like I said earlier, Fortnite could have posted, hey guys, how's it going today? And then people would be reacting the same way, right? So we need to change how we criticize the game. I always say constructive criticism is insanely healthy, but this is not what the Fortnite community does. But you know what? Shockingly, this time, we've been moving towards that a little bit. But anyways, Comical had this to say: why do they feel the need to baby mode literally every feature in the game if that makes it slightly fun? Yeah, it seems like it's going that way, eh? As a proud Simple editor, Simple Edit was not a good addition. Simple Build's coming. Simple Aim's gonna be coming soon. Like, it's true, man. They're making the game easier and easier, and Epic Games can never win either way. No matter what they do, they're not going to be able to win. But guys, let me stop you for just a second. I'll make this as quick as I possibly can, okay? As you guys know, started a family, right? I'm working as hard as I could possibly work on YouTube in order to provide for my family. So you guys have been helping me out using my supporter creator code. I have been advertising it. If there is not a code that you are using in the item shop, please consider using my code, Code Clen. It helps me more than you know. Thank you so much to everybody who has been using it. Let's get back into it. I think we did it pretty good, okay? I'm trying to make it like less of an interruption over on the video. Let's continue on to the next reply, okay? Like many things in OG, the way the Storm works is extremely outdated. I don't get how any of the current quality of life changes in OG are always received with negativity. Running in a straight line on a giant map is objectively not fun. No wonder why Chapter 6 has more active players. About the active players thing, I haven't really kept up. I would imagine Chapter 6 has more active players. At the state that it's in right now, it's just more fun. I can't wait to see what the numbers are like once we reach seasons 4, 5, and continuing on. What about when we get to like seasons 8 and 9? Like, that I think could really compete with Chapter 6, but right now, the OG experience still does feel a little bit bland. But I actually don't think the OG Storm is outdated at all. I understand not wanting to run in a straight line the entire game, but that doesn't happen the vast majority of the games. Plus, you can take measures to counter that by landing somewhere in the middle of the map. Plus, the Storm might just be where you are. Like, the point being, the Storm can end up anywhere on the map. It's part of the OG experience. I personally don't think it's outdated, but I understand where you're coming from in saying that. Let's continue on to Dylan TG. You guys overcorrected. This Storm format does not work for OG. A slight adjustment in Storm distances would have helped, but this is just using the changes made in Chapter 4 Season 2 that are made for mid-game objectives that don't exist in OG. Chapter 4 Season 2, I don't recall what that Storm update was, but I do think they overcorrected. Like, if they wanted to, like, reduce it just a little bit, obviously I wouldn't care. I might care just a tiny little bit, but at the end of the day, like, as long as it wouldn't be, like, a massive change, the point being, this is a massive change for OG, and you gotta think about it too. The game's being stale with the giant circles. That's been a huge problem that only Chapter 2 Season 7 has been able to solve with those giant circles. But let's continue on over the next post. Ali Jax had this to say: a massive part of old Fortnite was the Storm was a threat. This is bad, really bad, and destroys pacing. Before I get replies being confused or misinterpreting what I'm saying, this is what they're referring to. The Storm is this damn large. yeah, like, the storm might as well not be there, you know? Like, look at that, man. Look at that. Yeah, I think that is way too much of an overcorrection, especially for OG. I miss landing at Flush Factory and having the storm over Anarchy Acres, or even just like even a little bit of a travel. The storm might as well not be there. How often do you get caught back in the storm now? It's rarely. Back then, it was like the Hunger Games, man. That's what we really fell in love with the game, okay? Let's continue on to what Grookymon had to say. I think the change was unnecessary, and if you want to bring back OG, they bring it back, not suck it up to the new players who complain about everything being too hard and the storm too fast when I literally told you the storm was coming and you ignored me. That is your own fault. It's completely avoidable getting caught in the storm. That's so true, but again, I understand the people who don't find fun in running the entire game. I personally have fun with that. You get to traverse the map, you get to run into players also running from the storm, choosing whether or not to fight them. Like, I think that adds a pretty fun element to the gameplay, but again, I understand if you feel differently. Let's continue on to what Emmanuel had to say. Since this mode is trying to recreate the OG feel, they should have kept OG storms. Yeah, compared to today, they're a bit slow and boring for some, but that's just how it was in Chapter 1. And that's what I would like to see. I want this to be as close to OG as possible. The problem is, like I was talking about at the beginning of the video, I want that with exceptions. So I understand if you're going to comment down below and just be like, oh, you just want the game molded how you want it. Kinda. The point being, I get it, okay? I understand what you're going to say, it's just, I can't help it. I like the new movement, but I think the storm's a little bit too much. We all like different things. Let's continue on to what Orr had to say. I think Fortnite has changed a lot since it came out. Today, people kill each other faster than 7 years ago. Today, the game is faster than 7 years ago with sprint and mantling, but just those things make 29 people stay in a big storm circle, and that's not good, just boring. You could argue that something like that is one of the reasons why Epic Games decided to change the storm circle. I never see, it's weird that they came out with this one all of a sudden because people weren't really talking about it unless I just haven't been paying attention. Maybe I've been missing something about it, but I don't know anybody really saying, hey, the storm needed a little bit of fixing. Maybe saw some things here and there, but for Epic Games to actually act on it? I don't know. Maybe they're just transitioning their players into Chapter 6. Who knows? Let's continue on to what Dylan, the retweeter, had to say. Every quality of life change you've made for OG has done nothing but ruin it. Adding bots and adjusting the storm to be 12 phases has absolutely destroyed the experience of this mode and will make the mode die out a lot faster if you do nothing to revert it. I disagree that the mode will die. I don't think that anything Fortnite does really, like, rocket racing is a huge exception, but that was, we can talk about that another time. That was a special case that I had trouble seeing succeed from the very beginning, okay? But I don't like any of these quality of life changes that Epic Games has been making. I understand that they have been ruining the experience just a little bit for me, but ultimately I still am enjoying myself, and that's important to note. No matter what, this game mode is not going to die. People are going to sit down and people are going to want to play OG, as I've been doing. But I do think that they have a huge missed potential for how fun the mode actually could be, and it was like that when they first introduced Chapter 1 Season 1. Let's continue on to Mr. Vampire. The old storm was a key part of the OG experience because back then, the storm used to be extremely threatening, and now with the Chapter 6 storm in the OG mode, it doesn't make me get that intense feeling anymore. I wish they stopped half-assing this mode. I still don't think that they're half-assing the mode, but other than that, I agree with the tweet. I think that Epic Games is trying to make the best experience possible. I think that Epic Games doesn't want their modes to feel incredibly different. Maybe that's the reason for it. It's just like how they refuse to separate casual and competitive loot pools for the most part. I don't know why. There's little things, and it's difficult to say because, of course, for the most part, Epic Games always knows better. But there are these little things that they do, and I'm like, really? Really, Epic? I don't understand. You know what I don't understand, though? Why you are not watching this video on screen right now, because YouTube thinks you'll like it the best, and if you want to keep watching the channel, watch this video right here. I'd love to have you guys over there. Thank you so much for watching.